it was hard for me to go through and like write this section. And the reason why it was difficult for me to write this section is the more I started digging, the more I started looking into Duqu, the more I started getting a little bit frightened. And you know, I don't want to sound like somebody that's fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but dang, there's some stuff going on with Duqu that is really, really super interesting to me. And yes, we're going to banter about the phrase advanced persistent threat because they definitely fall into that category. I'm trying to figure out what the next buzzword is for the same type of attacker. We have APT now. It's going to be interesting to see what it becomes in the next couple of weeks. At any rate, let's jump in. So Duqu, they believe it's a descendant of Stuxnet. Many people say it's either written by the same authors or it's by people that have the same code base. Now, I don't necessarily know if that's the case, but if we try to piece this together, it looks pretty convincing. Now, there's one vendor, I believe it was Symantec, that came out and said, nah, it doesn't. No, it wasn't Symantec. It was Dell SecureWorks. They came out and they said, no, it's really not the same thing as Stuxnet. It's not. They're not related to each other. So we have really smart people at Dell. We have really smart people at Symantec. We have really smart people in Europe that did the first analysis. So we'll just go through and we'll talk about what Duqu did, and you're going to see a lot of interesting things. Now, I want to share the patch link that Matthew Harmon gave us. So thank you very much, Matthew. I appreciate this. Right at the top, or excuse me, the second from the top. Actually, it's both of the top ones. The two top ones on this list, what are they trying to fix? If you look at this link, both of these patches, 8.7 and 8.8, or excuse me, 8.7, and then you can see it says patch now, it's critical. These are local privilege escalation exploits. So it's true type font. So basically whenever your Word document starts up, it has to go through and render the font appropriately, and that's where the vulnerability actually exists. Now that's going to become really important here in a little bit whenever we're comparing and contrasting it with Stuxnet here in a number of moments, but it makes the infection vector an extremely easy infection vector. Basically sending in Word docs and having people actually run those Word docs is all that you need. So that is really, really, really critical for everyone in this room because it just makes it a very easy way to take over computer systems. Let me close that out. So that's a new 0-day. Also, it has been targeted. So far there's been 8 different organizations that have come out and have been identified. Only a couple that I know by name, but I'm not supposed to say the name, but they appear to be extremely targeted attacks. This is not something that basically goes through and you know, they're trying to hit as many systems as possible. And Joe brought up CSS, cascading style sheets, load fonts as well. Yes, go down the list of what exactly loads fonts, and it becomes an extremely frightening list of applications, right? Now, it's curious to see how many of those actually are loaded through the kernel, but everything that I'm reading and looking at the libraries, it looks like it can be triggered that way as well, because your fonts are going to be loaded from your operating system or loaded through the operating system, so that creates some really interesting issues. So yeah, it appears to be a targeted attack. So far there's 8, and there's 3 more in the wings that are still waiting to be confirmed as to whether or not they were targeted attacks or whether or not something like backsplatter, like, ooh, I got some Duqu on me. Now, this one really, really, really is impressive. It lasts only 38 days. Well, that's really something. If you remember, Stuxnet didn't remove itself. Now, because it had command and control infrastructure, there was always the ability to have Stuxnet removed. You could send the command to try and remove it. Not you as the victim, but the people that were running it could remove it. But this one, the certificates that were being used, once again from Taiwan, see something. I can't remember the exact name of the company, but they're right there in the exact same area as J-Micron and Realtek. The certificate was set to expire in 38 days. Now, whenever we say this point right here, pull certificates and moves. Now, the reason why it's doing this is it's pulling certificates for digital code signing. Now, this is really critical because the way that Duqu actually works is it actually loads itself up as a driver on your Windows computer system. Very, very interesting. Kind of a user mode rootkit, kind of kernel mode rootkit level being utilized. So it has DLL injection for the files that were being packaged and then would upload the driver. So we're talking about really user mode and kernel mode level protections to defend the rootkit on your computer system.